Hello and welcome to the GTA Nerdcast. My name's Matt,
And I'm Neil.
and today we're going to be doing our first ever segment of what we're calling Reboot Review, where we take a look at the original of a movie and compare it to a remake or a newer version of that movie. So today we're going to be looking at Willy Wonka versus Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yep.
So the original of Willy Wonka actually came out in 1971.
Yeah, it starred Gene Wilder, and I actually don't know anybody else in that
Bunch
movie.
of kids.
Yeah, a bunch of rascals. I guess we could do it different per movie. So maybe for this one, we could look at our Willy Wonkas, our Charlies, and the inevitable death or execution of all the poor little children.
And I think just an overall what we thought of the movie.
Yeah.
So what about Willy Wonka's? What do you think?
Obviously a classic. I remember seeing it for the first time when I was on vacation, staying in a cabin with my family, and I remember seeing is it called the chocolate room? Where everything's edible, like the first room they go into.
Oh, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, and the Pure Imagination song.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at that room, being I want to live there.
Yeah, I remember I was actually living in New Brunswick at the time when I first watched this movie, and I saw the trailer for it on YTV as a kid, and I was like, what is that movie? And of course my grandparents had already seen it. They're like, oh, that's Willy Wonka. And I was allowed to stay up past my bedtime to watch this Willy Wonka movie, and I was in absolute awe of just the candy in this movie.
Yeah.
Any child's dream.
So a few things should be said about the main character, Willy Wonka, in both versions, but we'll talk about this one right now. He's a freaking lunatic.
Yeah, he is. For sure.
He is a murderer, for one, most likely. And he's got a couple psychological issues he's got to work through.
I'd say so.
Yeah, and obviously the first candy room, the chocolate room, whatever they call it, compared to the newer version, doesn't compare, because in the new one they have all the stuff that can make it look nice and fancy.
You know what though, I actually think it holds up all right.
Yeah, no, it does.
It's, if you're gonna go on that, I'd say you give it to the new one by a slight margin, but they did a good job.
Yeah, no, they did for what they had. The one thing about the newer one is that it is a little bit closer to the books, which is what I'm actually more familiar with. Because I'm a big Roald Dahl fan, and I've read most of his books, and I remember the one thing about the original film though that doesn't haunt me to this day but for most of my childhood did, was the freaking boat ride.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that was very intense.
And I don't know how much you pay attention to Easter eggs and stuff like that, but if you go back and watch that film, you'll notice that there's the exact seatage on that boat, which means he knew that Augustus Gloop was going to not be on the boat with him.
What?
Or at least one of the kids.
Wow.
There's no empty seats, so that Augustus Gloop would have been able to go with them.
The power of the internet.
Yeah,
you can
really
analyze these things. I think in terms of Willy Wonka's, I love Johnny Depp, but I think he did a fantastic job. I would still give it to Gene Wilder.
Yeah, Gene Wilder is the king, I think. I'll agree with, in most cases, my least favorite thing about the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie was the Willy Wonka aspect of it. Little too Michael Jackson for me, I think. He was just kind of creepy.
Yeah.
In a bad way. Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka was creepy to the point of this guy's going to murder me and he's going to love it, where I think the Johnny Depp was just this guy's really weird and awkward, and I don't know, he's into weird stuff kind of thing.
I think in terms of Charlie Bucket, I would also give it to the older one. I think the kid was just more likable, in my opinion.
I'm gonna give it to the new one.
Really?
I like Freddie. What's his name?
I don't know.
Not Freddie Mercury. I can't remember his name, but he's also in like Bates Motel.
Yeah.
He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Why do you say him?
Charming little British kid.
Yeah.
Actually, I've heard another podcast talk about a theory that they've spun about. So in the old one, it's not really touched on where they live or where the factory is. But obviously Charlie's family is just like generically poor.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's universe, like everybody is poor. And it's like this weird rundown London. So there's this theory that they lost World War II.
Oh.
And everything is actually Nazi controlled, and that Willy Wonka is a Nazi scientist.
What?
Yeah.
Once again, the power of the internet.
Yeah. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, I'm gonna give my Charlie Bucket award to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
And then the next aspect is the kids, like the overall other cast of like supporting kids. This one I would actually say I give to the new one.
Yeah. I think their executions are well done. Augustus Gloop is the same.
He's about the same.
Yeah, it's the same like way he goes out.
Pretty much.
I think next is what's her name? Violet
Beauregard.
Beauregard. Pretty much the same. The one thing I will give to the new one as well is the musical numbers are a lot better. 'Cause it's instead of just oompa loompa.
See, I like the old one.
Yeah, it's just kind of repetitive, and like they actually, because the ones in the new version are right out of the book.
Oh, are they?
The Oompa Loompa Doopity Doo is not from the book.
See, I didn't know that. To me,
Yeah.
they just sounded like kind of poppy renditions of the old one.
Yeah. As well as Oompa Loompas, it's not that big a deal for me, but I like both versions.
I like both versions.
The old one is kind of like
classic.
Classic.
It's the classic look.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's Veruca Salt.
Veruca Salt. I don't remember how she goes out in the books, but I believe it's the peanut.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I like that exit a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'll do the Veruca Salt thing. The Daddy, I want a squirrel.
Yeah.
The way she says it.
There's Mike TV.
Mike TV.
My overall favorite character from
And
Charlie.
once again, I can't remember how he goes out in the new one.
He it's the same in both. It's the teleportation thing, and he gets like really small. They're trying to figure out a way that you can get chocolate through your TV.
Yeah.
And he becomes really small. But in the new one, they have to like stretch him out after, and you see him walking out of the chocolate factory.
So I have a question before we continue.
Sure.
Why is Willy Wonka spending all this money and technology on stuff for food? Like, do you realize what you could do with that radio wave technology? Like, you could steal money from banks.
Yeah. Willy Wonka the Robin Hood.
Like, you could materialize anything. You could just, like, materialize your enemies and shrink them real small and then, like, step on them.
Or you can make tasty chocolate.
He's definitely a Nazi scientist.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
Maybe the internet was right with that one.
Yeah.
So,
are those all the kids?
Yeah, what about Grandpa Joe?
I was going to say Grandpa Joe.
Grandpa Joe.
Old Grandpa Joe.
Old Grandpa Joe for sure. For sure.
Although I liked most of the older, like, Charlie's, like, grandma and grandpas in the new one because they were funny and they all had a lot more lines. Like, I remember laughing really hard at the "I like grapes" line.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely Grandpa Joe from the old one. Even though the one thing that kind of bugs me about that movie is that they're laying on their lazy butts, not doing anything, and their family's like, you know, poor, and has to serve them. And then all of a sudden, Grandpa Joe gets one notion that he's going to be able to get out of the house, and he's up and dancing around.
Yeah.
Like, no, you could have been out working, you lazy bum.
Damn it, Grandpa Joe.
Yeah.
And then I think if we were just going to say overall, so out of the two of them, which one do you prefer?
See, it's tough for me because I either go classic or I go close to the books, and I think it's too tough. It's too tough. I'm gonna say the new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had to choose between the two of them, it's no contest for me. I definitely prefer the old one.
Right. I think it just comes down to the fact that I appreciate Roald Dahl's like books too much. And I'm not saying by any means that the Gene Wilder version is bad. It's fantastic. It's just like my preference leans towards like the accuracy, and I think they're both fun, but I think with technology and everything, the movie that they made with the Tim Burton one was just like a lot better. And you can never go wrong with the cameo appearance of Chris. What's his name? Count Dooku. Saruman.
Oh,
Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as
his dad. So.
Yeah. Well, see, I can't read, so I don't know how accurate they are. But I gotta say that the older one was what I saw first, and feels a little bit more nostalgic to me. You know, I love Tim Burton, but I would still have to give it to the old one. So that's our opinions, and we're gonna put it up to the internet to see what IMDb says about the two of them. The old 1971 Willy Wonka scores a 7.8 out of 10, and the newer 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory scores a 6.7 out of 10.
Which is actually a lot higher than I thought. Because
I agree.
A lot of people don't like that movie.
It's true.
I don't think it's that bad. I think the thing is, it's like from probably 1999 to like 2000 and whenever this one came out. People just got sick of Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Which I can understand. Like he's a good actor when he's good, a bad actor. He's good in good movies and bad in bad movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think people had just kind of had enough of him like putting on makeup and calling himself like an actor when really he's just changing his clothes.
I think deeper than that too. That time period for movies, what you just mentioned, maybe like late 90s to about 2005, 2006, was a very weird transitional period for movies where special effects started to get a lot better.
Yeah.
And they were amazing for that time, but based on how fast they moved, they got outdated so quickly. So everything looks so bad from that time period to us now. Like I always think of Shrek. Like, have you ever gone back and watched the first Shrek?
No. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it looks so bad, but for that time, it was amazing, right?
Yeah. But even, like, Toy Story looks kind of rough.
Yeah.
But then at least by Toy Story 2, it's, like, a little bit cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost, like, a 6 or 7 year gap between those two movies, I think.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, thank you for listening to our first episode of Reboot Review. Stay tuned for more. Bye.
See ya.